There's actually 4 panelists, Abna, JD, and Mark. Chris Martin is still trying to get in here, so he may show up somewhere along this way. But,
okay.
So Praksha, it's your show. You go.
Yay. So first of all, welcome everyone. I am Praksha Nepal, R&D, Technology Intern here at Kroger. And you all know I have with me Dan Whittaker, Senior Director at Kroger. We have got 4 panelists joining us here today to share a little bit about their career and their journey. They are JD Whitlock, CIO Dayton Children's, Bhavna Mehta, Data Leader at Cincinnati Children's, Chris Martin, Director of Data Architecture at Procter & Gamble. I don't think he's here.
He may not be here yet.
And our last panelist is Mark Cordray, Senior Director of Enterprise Data Management at First Financial Bank. So,
Chris, I'm sorry, but Chris is here. If you can let him in. Chris Martin, did you see him?
Yeah, he should be in.
Okay,
yes.
Chris, here he is.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, so sorry, Chris. We had some confusion on the link.
No worries.
We're just doing introductions right now.
Perfect.
So he's
my
Chris
turn?
Martin, yep, Director of Data Architecture at Procter & Gamble.
Hi there, everybody.
So,
do I need to introduce myself?
yes, I'm coming to indeed. So without further ado, I want to welcome all our panelists here today. We are very fortunate to have you all here. So in order to start the session, I would like to ask all our 4 panelists to introduce themselves briefly.
You might want to call out their names.
Chris, do you want to start?
Oh, sure. So hi, everybody. I'm Chris Martin. I'm a lead data architect at P&G. Our chief data officer couldn't be here today, but happy to represent him. I've been here at P&G for, I guess, almost 29 years now, and based out of Cincinnati, and happy to be here.
Thank you, Chris. Bhavna, what about you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Bhavna Mehta, and I'm a data leader at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. We don't officially have a CDO role, but my responsibility is I am the co-chair of our Data Governance Council, and I have responsibility for enterprise data and reporting at Cincinnati Children's. And I have been there for about 20 years. I started with application development, went on to real-time integration services, then did some quality data, I guess, reporting, analytics on outside of IT, and then got back into IT to have a bigger role in data management as well. So I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, Bhavna. JD, you're next.
Hi, JD Whitlock, CIO at Dayton Children's. So similarly, Dayton Children's does not have a formal CDO role, but between myself and then one of my direct reports that does a variety of different things, including some data governance, we sort of cover a traditional CDO role. And then my previous gig before this was focused on data analytics, which is how I got hooked up with this bunch of smart people in this CDO group.
Thank you, JD. Mark?
Hey there, good to see everybody. So my name is Mark Cordray. I'm the Senior Director of Enterprise Data Management here at First Financial Bank. Similar to others that you've heard, First Financial doesn't have a formal CDO, but I'm the closest that we would have is serving in that role. And so I'm responsible, like I said, for the data and analytics program here at First Financial Bank. First Financial, just a little bit, is 4th largest bank here in Cincinnati. So very, very ingrained in the community here in Cincinnati. One of the oldest banks that we have. I've been with the organization since 2002, so 18 years here at the bank. Number of different roles in the organization throughout the years. Like I said, currently serving as the Senior Director of the Data Practice, and I'm chair over our Data Strategy and Oversight Committee. So really excited to dialogue.
Thank you, Mark. So let's start with the questions then. The first question coming on your way is, what is a Cdo position? And I think, Chris, you might want to start with this one.
All right, thanks. Let me give it a try. So at P&G anyway, there's a number of ways I guess I would characterize it. And at the end of the day, it's somebody who interacts with the C-suite, obviously, so the other CIO, CEO, et cetera. But they're here to drive kind of a data-centric culture, create business value from the data that we have throughout the company, promote a self-service analytic culture. So we want people thinking all of the time, how do I leverage this data? How do I drive insights, push us ahead, drive discontinuous value, do the best we can for the consumers, at the end of the day. It's about promoting data literacy, advancing our maturity, of course, protecting data, security, obviously, security, privacy, those kinds of things are a big deal these days. So the chief data officer is generally somebody who cares about that more than most. And then improving data quality. And ideally, one of the big things we're trying to do is eliminate that data, you could call it territorialism. So in other words, a lot of people think, well, the data, we own it, our application, it's ours to keep. Well, no, data is a corporate asset. And we want everybody in the company to be able to leverage that data. So the CDO is a champion for that kind of a mentality and driving that throughout the company. So I described it more as characteristics, probably the best way I know to describe it. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
What do you think, Mark?
Was that for Mark?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. No, I think Chris did a good job summarizing it. I would just, I think of it as just really a champion over information management. I think largely think of it as CDO being tasked with getting the most value out of data, out of information, helping reduce risk, helping us to really think about how to interact with our clients. I think it looks different from organization to organization, but at its focal point, it's centered around data, getting the most value out of that, whether that's through analytics or just information exchange, integration, things like that between different platforms. So like I said, I think it looks different with different organizations, but very centered in helping senior leaders, executives really think about effective management of our data, our information, and really how to use that information in a meaningful, valuable way and align that with the strategy of the company.
Thank you, Mark. Katie and Bhavna, do you have anything to add to Chris and Mark's answers?
I just wanted to clarify. I'm going to answer the question with a question. As part of Tech Olympics, are you doing anything else focused on analytics at all? Is this like the analytics session?
I think this is it, the analytics track, JD. So
analytics track, okay.
AJ, could you?
Yeah, sure. So we have the 4 weeks of Tech Olympics this month, and this 4th week is the data week.
Okay, got it. All right, I'm just clarifying. If this was the session for that, then we shouldn't get too hung up on CDO the role and just talk about analytics. But you have other you're talking analytics in other places. Okay.
Yes,
great.
and I think this is focused on, the CDO role.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, all right, so I would answer that question by saying in an organization that you may not have a formal CDO role, the point is you still have to do all this stuff well, right? So it makes sense to have a CDO role in larger organizations. Smaller organizations are not necessarily going to have one. That's okay. Somebody's got to do it. So you've got to have data governance processes in place, whatever size organization you are. I guess tiny organizations wouldn't have one, but medium to large organizations ought to have intelligent data governance processes in place to identify where data quality problems are and address them, and data literacy and all the things that that data governance is supposed to do. So that's how I'd answer that.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I would add is that the role focuses more on, or I guess the challenges are more the softer skills of the cultural issues when you're trying to drive data from a CDO perspective rather than IT. So that is one of the reasons I feel, I think that the CDO role has emerged because we needed someone, a senior level executive, to push on that cultural change. So the skills that are needed are, some of those, the change agent, that evangelist of data, that is some of the skills that I think would differentiate from a traditional IT leader, if you will. So I mean, I think that.
I think that's a great call out, Bhavna. My college degree is in psychology. It is not a technology degree. Technology data can be solved. It's the psychological aspects, the change management aspects, the cultural aspects that are monumental at times.
I was a film major.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Nice.
And I got an MIS degree later. But one other thing on that is analytics itself is not IT anymore.
Correct.
Right. So back in the olden days, if you wanted a report or analytics, you had to go to the person in the back of the IT department that got the data out of the mainframe, and it sort of had to be on IT. And as the data has gotten democratized, and most large organizations have, 1,000 points of light analytics all over the organization, that's part of the reason that it's out of IT and needs to be handled differently.
Thank you all. So the next question is, what is your greatest challenge in this position?
I mean, I can start if you want. I don't know.
Sure. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Again, it's not an official CDO position, but I feel like the greatest challenge is always that cultural change of making folks think differently. And I also feel like, I know we've talked about having organizational change management or things like that. I think that helps, but in the end, we got to show value, and people always want to understand what's in it for me. So I think taking it one person at a time, and trying to change that culture and explaining the use of data, increasing the data literacy, getting people to buy in, and really using making data governance as part of the work that you do, as opposed to just another thing or separate it out. I think that's a challenge, but at the same time, it's a fun challenge too. I mean, it's something that, for me personally, it energizes me, those interactions with people, and to try to get that shift going.
Thank you, Bhavna.
And maybe related, or to build, one of our greatest is, I guess it's related. It's balancing the strategic with the tactical, because there's so much pressure. We have all this data. We've got to deliver value to consumers and to the shareholders, et cetera. We need to do that now. We don't have time to wait for these, really cool governance strategies and standards and architectural patterns and, these kind of things. Put in place what really needs to be there to enable data lineage, to track, data evolution. We just need to deliver now. So convincing people to do kind of a both is one of our biggest challenges. You've got to be able to deliver on a kind of a regular drumbeat, but in parallel, be working on the things that will allow you to do that faster, more efficiently, with better integrity down the road. So that's one we're always dealing with.
JD and Mark, do you have anything to add to those?
This is very specific to our organization, but we have so much of the data that we need for analytics is in one of two big platforms, our electronic health record and then our ERP, enterprise resource planning. And so we do a lot of reporting in there. We really don't have a true enterprise data warehouse. But we sort of kind of a little bit have a need for one. And so we're building some data marts, and so that's if you ask the biggest data challenge, I would say that we haven't invested in that. And so we're catching up on that.
Yeah, I would just add, so our organization does have an enterprise data warehouse, and even then, it really starts to become a data literacy conversation. Really getting people that are very oriented to running a business and understand the financial aspects and things like that, maybe even operational aspects, for them to start to really understand what goes into managing data. Governance aspects to it, and really getting them to think of data as an enterprise asset. You see it very often, certain line of businesses, certain managers want to be able to do their own thing, right? And so when you ask them to come to the table and think about data as an enterprise asset, and now all of a sudden we have to collaborate around certain things and really start to prioritize business needs, which may not, by the way, be their number one business need. That's one of the greatest challenges, and that's where you really balance the art and the science aspect.
Yeah, and I think I would add to that. I think it's kind of the self-service analytics. So I know we want to promote that, but to create self-service analytics, you've got to create that governance, those governed data sets. And to get those governed data sets, you've got to start having folks change the way they consume data or request data. So to Chris's point, I mean, we have a long list of projects that we got to deliver, but then how can you start to take some of those and work through some of these principles, weave them through so that each project is actually generating a reusable asset, but then convincing the end user to wait to do that extra time that it would take to make it more make it reusable at the end. Yeah, so that's always a balancing act, right? To say how do you balance your deliverables with the long-term strategy.
Thank you, Bhavna. Since we're talking about dealing with more data and getting the value out of the data, what is the best way to train employees to be more data and digitally savvy?
The best way. Probably several ways. I mean, one, obviously, you make it a key part. We call them impact plans. So people's impact plans. So that's number one. Like you're intentionally saying you are going to make data something that you care about, you're interested in, you learn about. So that's nice to say and great, but that's kind of a prerequisite because at the end of the day, people always focus on their work plans and those kind of things. But then you've also got to invest in the experts and kind of the advocates for data, encourage those people to take their knowledge out of their head, get it out into the masses, spread that knowledge. Like for example, at my space alone, we're building a data architecture university to take the knowledge of my own team and spread that throughout the company so that I can't get to everybody. As we expand and data becomes, the new oil and the next big billion-dollar brand, there's no way I can keep up with that demand and assign a person to an area. So how do I get that knowledge into their hands and get them thinking about data, how to go about enabling that data, freeing that data up for others in the company to use, again, in a secure way, et cetera, and knowing that it won't be perfect. So that's a little bit of the trick. But then the other ones around things like mentorships and then career pathing. So how do you create career paths that allow people to learn more and more about it? How do you encourage them to take training, even if it's, a Udemy course or what have you? And then just constantly promoting, good examples of where we're using data in a creative way. We're always promoting the latest analytics or the latest visualization or something that drove a step change in what we do. So those are just a few of the things, I guess.
Mark, JD, Bhavna, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would just say, it really is a relationship role. I mean, I think the best way is you need to engage with people with a little bit of where they are. You have varying degrees of understanding. I think Chris brings out a good call out in terms of, okay, well, we're going to set an organizational tone that you're going to be intentional with this. And so that's important because you have to have a shared vision there to bring people to the table. But then you have to go into it understanding that not everybody's going to have, the same knowledge going into surrounding that table. So really engaging with those business partners and whether that's C-suite or even at the operational level, when you start thinking about data stewardship and data ownership and how do I improve data quality, you really have to engage at their level and be willing to write it out. All the best technology that you build isn't going to do any good if the people that are going to need to consume it don't understand it and don't understand the value that it brings, and that takes time.
Yeah, Preksha, our attendance is building here.
Yeah.
And there is a question out there. Ajay, you think you could read the question from the audience?
Yeah, sure. So there are actually a few questions. There are some in the Huva chat too.
Okay.
So one of them here is, do you all have any advice about how to make more opportunities how to find more opportunities in your field or make more connections for future endeavors as a high school/college student?
So back to my earlier point about analytics versus CDO, like if you are really passionate about data and analytics and you are still passionate about it after doing it for 5 years professionally, then maybe you decide you want to grow up and be a CDO someday. But I wouldn't recommend you decide that right now, right? Whereas analytics as a skill set and learning Power BI or Tableau and learning some statistics and learning some basic data skills will serve you very well regardless what you do anywhere close to technology. Quite honestly, any knowledge worker job these days anywhere, you're going to benefit from that. So I would focus on that for now.
You know, just to interject here, going to Tech Olympics, and they typically have contests around or workshops around BI and Tableau and so forth, is obviously a good way. There are also opportunities for high school students to intern at companies. We hire high school students at Kroger to do summer internships. So that's another way. And I saw Bhavna shake her head, so they must do it at Children's also.
Yeah, we do that too, not very frequently, but then if you reach out, and there's often could be a project or two, like a summer that we could help with, or work with a student on, for sure.
Yeah, and I know we do the same, like you said, infrequent, but you can always go to the website and connect that way, and they'll let you know whether or if opportunities are out there. I know we do a lot of work with STEM and those kind of groups as well.
I mean, there's a lot of opportunity on the Cincinnati Children's website, really on the research side. And today, research has a lot of data crunching that we do, right? We do a lot of data analytics in there. So I think then you'll be paired with actually one of the researchers who can help. So that is definitely an opportunity you want to look at. Because the SURF program is pretty prestigious. I don't know if you guys have looked at that, but that's that's more of a college, like a sophomore level. Okay.
Yeah, and the point about don't try to be CDO now, totally agree.
Yes.
Lots of experience, start small. We also, I think there's was it Girls Who Code? We're heavy into that as well. So that's another avenue. But anything like that, just get in touch with it. YouTube videos. I watch a lot. I know it's kind of scary. I watch a lot of YouTube videos just to get into, learn more, what's the latest trend, etc. You'll find a lot of newer kinds of ways of thinking. It's always good to be on that kind of cutting edge. So that's maybe something else you could look into at the high school level.
Yeah, and Coursera has some really nice courses. In fact, my son took it last summer. He's a senior right now, but he went and took the whole data sciences program over there, and he loved it. And now he thinks he wants to do stats and econ in college. So it's kind of helped him figure out what he wants to do next by taking that course last summer.
By the way, so speaking of stats is very important, and you probably have an elective for stats someplace. I would say scrap the calculus AP and take the stats AP.
Yeah.
Calculus makes you think creatively, though. So I will put a pin in a vote in for that.
Yeah, that's definitely for an analytic. Like, you got to be curious, right? That's, I think, one of the key things, and that definitely, that creativity, curiosity is important.
I have two teenage daughters. One that just started at UC. It's always interesting when they ask me about the profession, and I say, "Doesn't this sound exciting?" And they'll usually say, "I don't want a desk job. It's boring." I will tell you, there's nothing really boring about this at all. If you like to be challenged, if you like to problem solve, this is where you want to be. Because, like I said, there isn't. I know the cliche is a desk job can just be mundane, but it is an incredibly dynamic desk job. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, in this space, it also, I mean, I'm not an analyst or a data scientist, but those folks, they tend to be the trusted advisors. So when the CEO or somebody, hey, what's going on with our business over here, or how can we, help people with that, or COVID, how can we get involved in this? Guess where they're going first? They're almost always going to the data scientists and analytic folks first to get some unique insight. So you're always, if you like that kind of thing, exposure, visibility, definitely a good place to be.
Yes, and me being a data science major student, I totally understand what.
Ajay or Tina, are there additional questions?
Yeah, there was another question in the Q&A. It was, what made you get into data/IT?
That wasn't coming through real clear.
I can repeat that if it's what made you get into data/IT?
I can answer.
Yeah.
Although I'm always going first, so I probably should shut up. But that's a good one, because I went to Miami University up at Oxford. If you're at UC or something, I can't speak to that. But I went there for, what was it, systems analysis, computer science, electrical engineering, etc. So kind of related. But I wanted to go to Disney, do animation, graphics, Photoshop, etc. So did I jump in and say I want to do data? Not really. IT though I did. So I was involved programming, coding. I just liked that kind of thing when I was in high school. And so I wanted something that connected that with graphics. So at P&G, there was an opportunity to do that in the advertising space. But one thing to note about these kinds of bigger companies, budget drives things. So budget caused that project to kind of shut down. And so I ended up getting moved to a new area where I started doing architecture and getting involved in databases, data warehousing, and BI. So it just kind of grew from there, just because of all the things we've talked about. The challenge, the creativity, the problem solving, something that people didn't really understand, so you could become the expert. It just was a nice mix. So I didn't jump right out saying I want to be CDO or I don't even think we had analysts back then or anything like that. It just was a natural evolution starting from that IT space.
Yeah, I would say I don't know that I necessarily chose IT. I mentioned before I got my 4-year degree from UC in psychology. Actually got on board with a bank and really in an operations role, an operations management trainee role that really didn't care what the major was. They just cared that you got decent grades. And so my hard work in college with trying to get good grades got me to a level of where they would consider me. And then as I worked through this whole, what does ops management even look like? I had in my spare time just was really interested in databases, got into web development, an old program called Dreamweaver. So I was doing web stuff, connecting that to databases. And so people at the bank knew that I had, some, at least a passion for technology, maybe not necessarily in an academic sense. And then they started to use me in just different ways. Hey, can you put this database together? And oh, by the way, it starts to become a vendor management intake, managing your contracts with different companies you have agreements with. So I think it's one that just naturally flowed out of a passion, not necessarily anything I planned out. Just the opportunity was there, and I, my motivation, my curiosity, just being naturally driven toward it was there.
JD, I'm really wondering how a film major became a CDO.
Sure. So I was a film major because I was Navy RTC, and I knew that I had a job when I graduated. I was going to be a naval officer, so it really didn't matter what I studied. So I figured out I could watch movies and write papers and get a 4-year degree. So that's how that happened. So I'm a retired military. So I did Navy stuff in the Navy. I then actually got a public health degree, switched to the Air Force, was healthcare administrator. And then after doing that for a while, basically one flavor of being a healthcare administrator is doing the IT stuff in healthcare. So really I'm healthcare first and IT second. Now I've been doing the IT part long enough. Hopefully I know what I'm doing, but a little bit similar to Mark. I just sort of, wormed my way in there with what was the next interesting job. Now looking back on it, I was really interested in figure out DOS on my 286 computer when I had a null modem cable, run to another 286, so we could do like the earliest, flight simulators. So I was, yes, was I interested in it? Yes, it just sort of happened. I'm not recommending you do all that. I'm not recommending the military. I know there's a lot of great experience in the military if you're into that. But keep in mind that the graybeards like us, when we were in college, IT was not what it is today, right? So the options were limited. I took a Fortran course when I was a freshman in college, and I hated it because they didn't bother to actually tell us how to use the mainframe. I liked the logic of the programming in the textbook, but I got turned off to computers because they didn't really train us on the mainframe, and therefore the lab assignments were extremely painful. So I figured, oh, well, computers aren't for me. That was the state of learning that back then in the mid-80s.
I think I'm the oddball here because I actually knew I was going to do IT. I was very fond of software. So we started computers when I was in 5th grade. So I started learning, GW Basic, right? And we started writing our first Hello World program at the time. And I think it was sometime in 8th grade, I finally understood the concept. We were doing Pascal, I think, at the time. Finally understood the concept of using, counters and accumulators and memories. And I was like, whoa, this is cool, right? And I think that's when I kind of decided I want to do software. And I took classes towards my high school, and then actually went on to do my undergrad in computer engineering. But then when I came to the States in 97, so I worked for about a year in India with a software company, and then I came here, and I just enjoyed software. Went on to doing web programming and application development. But then I think after about a year or two, I kind of realized I needed the business side too. So because I think just having a technical, just because the industry was evolving, and like we've all talked about, it is just so important to understand what the problem you're trying to solve with IT is and to make that connection. So I actually went ahead and did my MBA. I still had like a minor, if you will, in the information system side of my master's too, but did my MBA, and that helped me connect the dots and actually speak the business language and then translate into IT. So over time, and I think as I did a lot of application architecture and interfaces, when I'm back then, I guess back in the early, late 90s, early 2000s, BI wasn't as big, right? It was basically simple reporting. But as we started collecting a lot of data, writing custom applications, or, we implemented a big EMR back early 2000s, and there's a lot of data needs. So looking at an opportunity there to say, okay, principles like DevOps, data needs that too. So I think I tried to make that connection, and I jumped over to the data side at the time. So it just seemed like a new challenge. And, I've really enjoyed my journey since then.
Thank you all. Do you have any more questions, Azay?
Yeah, so there was a couple similar questions actually, asking about people's like day-to-day, what their job looks like. I'll read one of them here. It says, I'm not super familiar with the position of CDO or this field. So what does a day look like for you guys, or for people in positions that lead to where you all are at?
A lot of meetings right now. I don't know what your day looks like. A lot of meetings. Not to say that that's not how it started, right? But I think when you get to a certain level, it is you're trying to connect business strategy to data strategy or IT strategy, and then you are talking a lot of it. I work a lot in PowerPoint, which I never did before, so I don't do a lot of PowerPoint presentations, because a lot of storytelling to connect the dots. But I think from a day-to-day perspective, when you said, how it would lead to something like that, a position that would lead to something like that, a day-to-day would be to solve business problems using either, depending on what you're interested in. If you're interested in data engineering, it'll be more technical, trying to map data elements to a warehouse, versus if you're interested in data analytics, it might be accessing a data set and trying to solve a problem or trying to answer a question with that data, working on a project. Of course, meeting with your customers, but maybe more, trying to create something out of nothing in a way, right? From a data set or I guess an application. I don't know, you guys, anybody else can expand, but that's kind of thinking back.
I think go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Jenny.
What I was going to say is, keep in mind, please, you are talking to some senior managers. All of us are senior managers. I don't care what you do for a living. If you're a senior manager, you're managing people, you're doing PowerPoints, you're doing presentations, you're doing strategy, you're doing vendor management. So don't be put off by that. If you're really passionate about data, one of the fabulous things about this area is that you don't have to go into management to make a really good salary. You can go be some PhD data scientist and get really smart on a vertical, and you're going to make a lot of money, and you never have to manage anybody. So maybe you need to have a different panel with those folks. But everybody here's a manager, yeah. So we do manager things.
That's a good point, JD.
Yeah, I think you saw everybody kind of nodding with the meeting comment. A lot of meetings, but a lot of that's good opportunity to create relationships. But then a lot of I have a technical team, so I get energized by getting into some of the solution architecture and the development that's happening, within our databases, that's happening within our visualization tools. So I get to sit by the rock stars that make it all possible and just take it all in and really just try to glean and get their position, their perspective on things, because that's one thing that I've learned in my experience is you're not just sitting with a technologist. You're really sitting with somebody that can give you a different perspective that may be different than your own. And that is a tremendous opportunity. So like JD said, whether that is a management role that you would want to get into or something that is more oriented towards just data science or data visualization, the dynamic is just tremendous of what you can do. So yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'm unique now, but I was able to give away my team management responsibility. So I recently put somebody else in charge of the team. So what that allows me to do is I talked about this data architecture university. So I'm heavily involved in thinking about how do I take 29 years of knowledge and knowledge from the rest of the team, kind of bring that together into kind of a course curriculum, figure out how to disperse that through the company. So a lot of my time is spent on that. So strategy, building a curriculum, creating the content, leveraging existing content. Another big piece is we've got this metadata challenge. We've got a lineage challenge. So how do I trace data through the company? So it's sitting back and having think time. I know it's hard to believe, but I get to have think time now to think about how would I solve this? What could I do? How can I leverage what I did? How can I leverage what other teams are doing? How can I connect with them? So my meetings are with other people to try to pull all that together, understand what works, what doesn't, and come up with these kind of creative solutions. But also, as some of you know, I'm benchmarking what we do with other companies. So I spend time benchmarking, understanding what other companies are doing. So it's kind of nice, to be honest. And maybe it's because I'll be retiring in a few years. I don't know. But I went through that path of development, independent person, just code all day long, to tuning databases, to architecting the next data warehouse program, to virtualizing data, to building master data, to then architecting bigger, and then managing a team. And then, you know what, let's go back and think, how do we solve these wicked problems? So it's kind of cool, to be honest.
Chris, you brought up a good point there, because we do have a lot of meetings, but a good part of our meetings is someone has a problem or wants to do something. And they don't know what data they need, what technology they need, what people they need, what process they need. So we go figure it out. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right.
Solutions architecture.
That is correct. That's correct.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you're curious, if you're creative, if you like to solve a problem, if you like playing with data, I mean, it's a fantastic field to be in. And the more breadth you can get, whether you're working with, application level data or machine level data, or I mean, it's all different types of data. Just increases your breadth and you grow from there. But yeah, I think those were the key things that we still do today, right? And I still am now and then when I sit with the team. You're right, it's my geek out moment when you start to look at code and you actually see how the things are being done.
So I would say be careful about maybe one watch out, and I don't know if others agree or not, but don't get too tied into, if you're going to do this field, into one type of you know, although Python might be okay, but a specific language or something, you get so deep in it because things are moving so fast now. Think about the clouds. We're heavy into the cloud, and probably all the clouds, Google, AWS, Azure, et cetera. That's technology stack. You implement one thing, and then 3 weeks later, there's a new version of it or a totally different thing that's even better than the prior thing. And so you got to be able to adapt. And the more, to the point about the breadth, maybe get depth in something just so you kind of know how to go about it. But then to be aware of all these other things that are evolving, you can't know all of them. But if you're able to adapt, that's a heavy, you know, big commodity things that at least we're looking for. I know that others are looking for, because the tech today and the solutions and products just come and go like so fast you wouldn't believe.
So Ajay, we're getting close to the hour. If there's no more questions from the audience, do you want to wrap it up?
Well, so I think there is actually, I was going to say there's a question that I think is pretty related to that in the chat. It says, as technology continues to advance, new trends are showing up every day. How do you keep up with the new trends and stay organized?
You don't. So like for me, like I said, YouTube, conferences, benchmarking, you're kind of aware. And then depending on where your kind of focus is on the wicked problem of the day, you get more interested obviously in that space. We get involved with companies like Gartner to be aware of the latest and greatest so that you're not looking at everything. Other companies can help you figure out what to look at. So you're not doing that. So I'll just put that out there. I know there's not much time, so I'll let others weigh in.
I think having good peer network, you know, getting involved, different roundtables, different symposiums, just trying to stay fresh and not just what's happening in the industry. You can go and find 20 different white papers that are going to tell you varying degrees of the latest and greatest. I think for me, it's really getting that exposure and then talking to the practitioners, those that are actually doing it, because there are a lot of things that you'll read about academically and they look really great, grandiose. And then when you look at your organization and say, what does that look like for us? It's a different story. So you kind of got to work through some of the hype that comes with getting informed of new technologies to really get effective at it.
Do we have any more questions? Ajay?
Yes, there's one more. How do you see data in the industry changing in the future?
Be more of it.
Lots.
Yeah, certainly you have to track artificial intelligence and what that's going to be able to do. So there's obviously going to be a lot of changes there. On the other hand, it's not that just because you can theoretically do something with artificial intelligence doesn't mean that's a commercializable, implementable thing in current workflows. That's big in healthcare. There's like 1 million companies that say they're doing AI in healthcare, but there's only a handful that are useful today to doctors in their workflow. But it'd also be dumb to think that that's not going to change the world. Of course, it's going to change the world. So there's going to be a lot of jobs in there. Figure that part out. What are the AI jobs going to be, right? Training the AI. That's where the jobs are going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know if the data will change per se, because the data is the data. It just keeps expanding. But maybe, yeah, with AI, but also like IoT devices. I know we're more and more into that, and then just understanding how to deal with the privacy concerns and what's the right balance of, well, I got to have some level of data to enable this, and this, or, you know, to deliver a better product, that kind of thing. But plus the sheer volume that creates and the ability to interconnect and literally see 360-degree views of everything. It's just overwhelming. And so is it changing? I think it's just expanding and exploding. And you're going to have AI and different approaches. It's driving a change as well in the technology. So the relational database and things, those are nice. But as this data explodes, you simply can't design things the way you did before as a result. So you have to be thinking differently. Yeah. How do I make sense out of that madness?
from the perspective of just it's growing. You're seeing more and more of it. So as you think more and more of it, you're able to really create that become okay. Now we know so much about you that we have to really start thinking of an ethical way, because once, like I said, once you start purchase or what they want to transact on before they even think about what's the right way to use this data.
Go ahead, Bhavna.
Yeah, no, I was going to say about the ethics point, especially in healthcare, and we're recently having those conversations from a research perspective. You know, with AI and machine learning, sometimes you get the insights that you really want to think, do I want to act on this? Do I really want to know what this is telling me? So I think the data volume increasing, the data sources and the type of data with, you know, with variables, and we have, you know, vitals and monitors streaming. So we have unstructured and structured data, both just the sheer number of sources and volumes. I think that now we're getting into some of the processes that we have to rethink of how we use and store and actually use this data.
And what I was going to add was back to the AI thing and being prepared for the future. One major you might want to consider in college is cognitive science. And a lot of cognitive science, there's like a psychology track to it and like a technical track. If you do more of the technical side of that, so you're still learning the coding, but you're understanding how the brain works, because so much of AI is trying to do the neural networks and all that stuff. There were going to be a lot of jobs there.
You're right. I mean, some of the analysts I'm trying to think of, the data scientists that we've hired actually have that, either data science or, I mean, like I said, a psychology background, or, you know, that does, even from a healthcare perspective, you have epidemiologists doing that. So I think that, again, goes into that level of detail, right?
So we have to be hitting time, so.
Do we have any last questions, Ajay? Just one last question.
I think I've read all the questions that I've seen. Yeah. So
I mean, I do have one question if you want.
Yeah.
So what suggestions would you provide to students looking to join the technology field?
Co-op or intern. So I mean, if you can't, you can't, but if you can, I would do it at least once. So get that real world experience exposure. Not only will it help when you are applying for jobs, etc., but it also gives you that insight. Is this really what I want to do? And you'll be able to network within those companies to understand, is there something else I want to do that's even better, even cooler? So that would be one big suggestion from my standpoint.
JD, do you want to add something?
My practical advice is learn Power BI. It's a free download. Microsoft makes their money when you try to share things, but you can do a free download and watch a bunch of YouTube videos and get smart on Power BI. And that's a really, really good place to start in the data world.
Why Tableau?
Tableau, exactly. I was going to say Tableau is another one of those, right?
Tableau is another one, but here's the thing. Here's the thing about that. Corporate America is already on Microsoft 365, and it's so easy to go that way instead of Tableau. Yes, your purist data visualization people that have been doing it for 20 years will swear on Tableau, and Tableau is a very powerful tool. Yeah. But most companies are going the Microsoft route for that. Also because, does Tableau have a truly free client version?
Yeah.
It does.
I mean, it does. You can
not the reader. I'm not talking about the reader. I'm talking about authoring things.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Tableau desktop does, right? You can't share it without the reader. But yeah.
But is it free for a high school student?
It's not.
I don't think so.
You're right.
That's my point.
Maybe
Power BI is free to everybody.
That's right. That's right. Well, I mean, I think, and the other thing is there are plenty of publicly available data sets, right, to start to use and learn from, to apply with Power BI or any of the tools that you're trying to learn. I think that was also a great way of getting started, because you're looking for a large data set to mine. And sometimes, you know, as a student, you don't know where to go, but there are plenty of, you know, like the census data sets and your weather data set, and Google has a lot of them. So just kind of starting there. The other thing I would say is starting to learn a little bit more about integration. So it's BI and analytics is now moving towards more API usage too. So stats and API. So trying to learn more about that side of the house as well, would put you in a good place in the future.
Yeah, also cloud. So you can get a ton of free cloud memberships. Just be really, really, really careful about canceling at the end of the subscription, because what looks like a few pennies a month can add up in a hurry once you start bringing a lot of those things up. But during that 1 year trial, I think Microsoft says 1 year, you can get play around with a lot of cool technology that there's no way you could have done that in the past. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, cloud is obviously huge. So it's another idea for you.
Microsoft and Amazon and Google are very motivated to train young people to learn their cloud platform so that they make money on software as a service down the road. And so therefore they just throw free training resources at you.
Bring up a database in 10 seconds. It's kind of fun, but be careful. Just keep an eye on the charges.
Yeah, pick your shirt size.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's about a wrap. Correction. Go ahead.
We're right at the time. Thank you so much, JD, Bhavna, Chris, and Mark for being here. It was a wonderful session with you. It was great to learn from your career choices and all the possible things that you told this our high school students. Hope they take a lot of information from you all. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for facilitating.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Good luck.
And just as just to mention to the attendees, like you will get your raffle tickets for coming and for staying towards the end. And yeah, thank you again for everyone for coming.
All right.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone for coming and for and for speaking. Sorry about that confusion at the beginning. Yeah.
No worries.
Bye.
It was the second link.
Good luck, everyone. Yep.
Bye.
Right,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.